Morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I'm Urvashi Sahni from Lucknow, India. I'm a co-founding member of the Catalyst 2030 and also a co-chair of the Working Group for Education. So it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the consultation today, our session on shaping the futures of education. I want to also welcome Noah Sobe, who is a Senior Project Officer for Futures of Education, which is a UNESCO initiative with the hope of reimagining and reshaping learning and knowledge for the future. The UNESCO put together an international mission of policy makers, academics, people from art, science, and the humanities, with the hope of having wide consultations all over the globe, and then coming up with a document or a report by 2021, which will be give direction to policymakers and practitioners. So our goal today, really welcome everybody, is to be part of that consultative process. And I invite everyone to really think as divergently as possible, because we have such a rich group of education leaders from all over the globe. And, it's called the expert hour, and you're probably wondering, who is the expert? Surprise, surprise, you are. You are our experts. The goal is to provide your expertise through this document and to participate in this project. So our agenda for the day will be that I and my co-host, Colin McKelvey, who's also co-chair of the Working Group of Education and one of the founding members of Catalyst 2030, we will be hosting this. We will be handing over very quickly to an introduction to futures of education by Noah. And then there will be consultations for 40 minutes, nice chunk of time in our breakout rooms, after which we will hope which will be facilitated by us. You know that the 4 breakout groups, I'll just quickly read, Noah will be telling us more about those: on human and planetary sustainability, citizenship and participation, knowledge production, access and governance, work and economic security. And there are 2 groups about thinking about the broad purposes of education. After that, we hope that there are note takers for each group. So we hope they'll be taking notes furiously. And the facilitators will share and report back to the whole group, after which we'll discuss next steps. But before we start on our process, I think we should just give you a brief introduction to Catalyst 2030, because there are many of us here, many of you here who aren't members of Catalyst 2030. So, Jiru, if you will take the first stab at it, please.
I would request the Catalyst 2030 members, Colin, Urvashi, Rana, Audrey, to please join in as I'm sharing all the slides whenever. So basically, Catalyst is a practitioner-led network, but we have donors, government people, UN bilateral, multilaterals, and it was started to address the key challenges which are an obstacle for the social progress index to be achieved. And the SPI will be achieved. As of now, the sustainable development goals will not be achieved by 2073. So we hope that if we are able to overcome lack of resources, minimal collaboration and siloed work, the disconnecting funding models, and the lack of our expert voices, actually today's session is about that in decision-making processes, then we would be able to accelerate change. Over to you, Urvashi. You're on mute.
Sorry, Colin, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as Jiru just said, there's a real desperate reason for us to be around. And this is pre-COVID, but having COVID, it really extends, if you like, the lack of progress we're potentially going to make towards the SDGs. So it's a movement that's come together of social entrepreneurs and innovators touching many, many people in many, many countries. It's absolutely a global movement. It covers all of the SDGs are covered, and it's also the members that have come on so far. We're 500 strong. have a proven track record of methods within their work that move countries, move sectors towards systems change. And you see some of the founding members there below, but there are 500 individual organizations so far that are below that. And obviously we'd like to add many of you on the call today to that. Next slide. Urvashi.
And just to give you our mission, vision, and our core values. I want to talk about the core values. I think the mission and vision has been discussed. We are aiming to achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030 through catalysm, through catalyzing an unprecedented mobilization of social entrepreneurs, partners, and resources, aiming to move from incubation to expansion in 2022. Here are our values, and those are really my favorite, that we believe that people and nature should be at the very center in everything that we do. And we firmly believe in a co-creative mindset. So right from the word go, we are all co-creators of this organization, and we abhor hierarchies, and we definitely work in a very lateral, collaborative manner. We believe in collaborative leadership, and we believe in humble audacity, that we have very audacious goals, but we understand with great humility that none of us alone know how they can be best accomplished, which is why we want to work together. We are imbued with the spirit of generosity. They're all donors, doers, visionaries, or clients, and we commit to sharing our knowledge, time, and networks freely without expecting anything in return other than the achievement of our collective goals. I think, yeah, Yvonne, can you go ahead? Rana.
I think these are the four main things, what we call the four main pillars. One is building the movement, and Colin and Urvashi have talked about it already. Second is catalyzing the sector, which is basically showcasing what the sector is doing so we can have a seat at the table. Third is catalyzing a lot of collaborations. Example, Urvash, I know that Rana on the call has already started collaborations with multiple people, as have Colin and Urvashi, who's our third facilitator. And third is changing the ecosystem, where we work actively with donors, example, Audrey from WISE, but others, to see how can we make the system change. And we work with bilaterals and multilaterals, like with Noah, who's going to be talking next on what is the ecosystem change we can bring about, and what is the expertise that all of us have, which can be brought to the table. And for this session, to shape the future of education. Over to you, guys.
Thank you, Jiru. And now if I could invite Noah to tell us a little more about the Futures of Education initiative. And just from on behalf of Catalyst 2030, I want to say how delighted we are to be able to collaborate on this and look forward to a very serious partnership with UNESCO on this project and more. Thank you, Noah, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Urvashi. Also, Colin and Jiru, I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to share my screen here and run through just a very quick presentation about UNESCO's initiative and briefly introduce how we're going to use this expert hour. But thank you all for coming. So I'm Noah Sobe. I'm a senior project officer at UNESCO, helping to lead on this really exciting initiative. I will say that in my normal life, I'm a professor of comparative education at Loyola University in Chicago, but I'm on leave for 2 years to work at UNESCO on this. So as Urvashi mentioned, this is a project that UNESCO launched in September of 2019. It's an initiative to reimagine how education, how knowledge and learning can shape the future of our world, the future of humanity, the future of the planet. It has a number of different tracks, including an international commission that will prepare a report for release in November 2021. It also has a global co-construction element, which is why we're all here together today. And I will explain how these fit together and how they unfold in just a minute. I want to start off by showing a quick video that at least at the beginning of the project, we put together to set the stage. So give me 1 second for a scene change.
What kinds of futures do we want to shape? Accelerated climate change, artificial intelligence and biotechnology, increasing exclusion and fragmentation. Our world is becoming more complex and uncertain with many disruptive challenges. Knowledge and learning are humanity's greatest renewable resources for responding to challenges and inventing alternatives. Yet, education doesn't only respond to a changing world. Education transforms the world. But to create the futures we want, we must rethink education. UNESCO has launched a global initiative to reimagine how knowledge and learning can shape the future of humanity and the planet. We are looking at 2050 and beyond, and we want to partner with you to discuss, debate, and re-envision the ways education enables us to become what we want to become. For ourselves, for each other, thinking together so we can act together. Join the conversation and let's make the futures we want.
Okay, let's just quickly go back here to my presentation. So we know, we know that many transformations are underway in how we learn, what we learn, where we learn, with whom we learn, why we learn. And one of the key things that I think you picked out of that, hope you picked out of that video, is that we're framing this just like Catalyst is doing, in the really broad picture of what it is we want, what it is we can create in terms of our societies, our economies, our political realm, really our world. So it's a very broad framing, an invitation to think about the role education can play, what will be the pressures on education, what will be the potentials of education. It's interesting, you probably noticed, and like many of us these days, when you see pictures of people without masks on, it sort of takes you back to an earlier moment. We made that video in August, September of 2019, before the project started. And of course, it's interesting and important to think, as we all do, about the ways COVID has changed our world. And in some ways it has changed this Futures of Education initiative. In some ways it hasn't. One thing that's for sure, though, is that it has made it clear just how important thinking about the future is. It's in a lot of ways reinforced the urgency and importance of this project. When we think about COVID, I'm just going to digress for a couple seconds because I think it's relevant and could be useful to the discussions. It's remarkable, on the one hand, how unprepared we all were. Even when, for decades now, every single scenario exercise includes a global pandemic, right? Includes a scenario where the planet is shut down because there's a disease that's spreading. Yet, nonetheless, we were completely unprepared for what happened. I've heard someone say it's like we were hit by the train that we have seen coming for 30 years. So one conclusion to draw from this is that we need to get better at planning for the future. Another is that being more successful in terms of thinking about the future, or futures literacy, is more than coming to terms, it's more about coming to terms with the reality of uncertainty. I mean, the reality of just how hard it is to actually predict what will happen in the future, and come to the conclusion that perhaps it's strategies like resilience and flexibility that allow us to adapt and adjust and not just react, but shape the future. Another lesson or conclusion we might draw that I think is useful to think about in relation to COVID is just how dramatically the world can actually change. We saw in the space of weeks, months, profound changes in the lives of school children, people in the formal labor market, you know, household situations. We saw a dramatic reshaping of the way people, politics, economies worked, education worked. That, I think, actually leaves us with a note of hope, a note of possibility, because it shows us just how open the future is, just how much possibility there is for us to kind of move beyond, move outside of the frames that we have. Let me, maybe this is a good time to make a comment about the framing of 2050 and beyond, which I'm sure you picked up on in the video. So on the one hand, why am I talking to a group of people who are correctly committed to a bunch of goals around 2030? Why are we at all talking about 2050? I'm going to give you a couple reasons. One is that even though COVID has made us feel in many ways that the future is now, and clearly, as Colin and Urvashi were getting into in the introduction, the decisions we're making now are going to have really fundamental future shaping consequences. But it's important at the same time not to lose sight of a longer term horizon, right? So quite intentionally, UNESCO styled this around this horizon of 2050 and beyond. This is not any kind of planning to immediately succeed the SDGs or the 2030 agenda. It's about taking a longer term planning perspective. It's in one part also not to be locked into the framings of 2030 and the 2030 agenda, but at the same time to also use features of the 2030 agenda really as the base. You know, maybe not, goal 4 gives us a lot of useful signposts, but I think that the real base that we get from the SDGs for this initiative are in the really broad goals that set up this agenda in the first place. One is we need to address inequality, right? Inequality is the piece that pulls the SDGs together. It's the core, it's the heart of the 2030 agenda, addressing inequality. And then the second piece is the importance of an integrated approach, the importance of a transdisciplinary approach, the importance of doing exactly what Catalyst does by bringing people together who maybe otherwise wouldn't normally be talking to one another, but to collaborate and magnify each other's efforts. So the overarching purpose of this project is to generate global debate and action on the futures of education, recognizing that the world is increasingly complex, increasingly uncertain, and increasingly fragile or precarious. So what we're going to do in a second is work on envisioning the world of 2050. I'm sure many of us are familiar with things that have been predicted. Many of us can bring up projections, things that have been anticipated. At the same time, we want to direct attention at the alternatives, the possibilities, the world of 2050 that we want. And the strategy of the project here, is very akin to what Colin and Urvashi laid out for Catalyst in general. It's to identify what is hindering us, what is getting in the way of us moving in the direction we want to head, and also where do we see seeds of possibility? Where do we see promising things already beginning to emerge? And then I think the challenge for all of us is bring that thinking about 2050 back into the present and think about how you tip the balance and move in the directions that you want to move in. UNESCO is engaged in this kind of reflective visioning exercise roughly every 25 years. The organization has produced kind of marquee global reports on education. So this is really a unique, you could say a once in a lifetime opportunity for us all to come in and help shape something that will be really influential. So the first of these reports was the 1972 Delors report, came out at a time of a starkly bipolar world, also a world that was being transformed by civil rights and women's equality and decolonization. And this report really put the notion of lifelong learning onto the global map. It introduced and made lifelong learning something that over the last 50 years we've continued to think with and work on implementing and transform. The second report, many of you might be familiar with, it's the Delors report. It came out in the late 90s. Again, a very acute, interesting historical moment. And I think the great contribution of the Delors report was, if you remember at the time, a lot of ideas about human capital and education for the world of work were circulating, and UNESCO's report came in and said, yes, but we also need a more holistic approach. It put forth the 4 pillars of learning, which you might be familiar with, this idea that learning is about learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, learning to live together. And I think that's had a real impact on education. Now, what will be the impact of the 2021 Futures of Education report? That's up to us. It's up to us to shape it so that it does have an impact. I do include on here a 2015 report that a lot of the current project is based off. It's this idea that the suggestion that we need to really think about the way education can help us move towards a global common good, the Rethinking report. There are 2 tracks. One is an international commission. It's chaired by the president of Ethiopia, Madam Sahle-Work Zewde. This is, as you've probably figured out, an interesting and a significant shift from previous reports in terms of the leadership. And I put up on my slide here a quote that I think is quite important, and it also lets us get into what is, I think, a very important feature of this project, which is the use of futures in the plural. It's something that's difficult to translate into a number of languages, but the core of the idea is that pragmatically, practically, we know that there will be multiple futures of education. And in fact, that is desirable, that a pluralism of locally decided, determined futures is in fact the proper way, the right way to shape the worlds we want. And as Madam Sahle-Work Zewde, president of Ethiopia, said, no longer do we allow the future of the planet to be dictated from one location. It's only through local and collective actions that the futures we want can be made. The president is joined by a commission of 17, 18 other people from different fields. Urvashi mentioned this at the beginning. These are people out of education, government policy, civil society, also the worlds of activism, the arts, the natural sciences, and geographically distributed. I'm not going to go through and tell you about them. If you're interested, you can look online. But I would say most important, in fact, is that the work of the Commission is complemented by, I'm going to skip over this slide for time, is complemented by a broad process of global consultation, really a process of co-construction that reaches out to as many stakeholders as possible. That's why we're doing this today, and that's why we're gonna at the end ask you to take this process forward, to bring in the viewpoints, the ideas of youth, of educators, of people out of policy, civil society, business, really all dimensions of human activity, I think, in one way or another, play into education. There are a range of ways to get involved. What we're going to do today, in just a second, is a focus group activity. We'll break into groups. I will be talking about particular topics, collecting that together, and we hope that you will be inspired to organize focus groups with your networks, the people you work with, to bring their ideas and perspectives in. There's also a few other approaches, other ways that you can mobilize people. One, we have a very interesting 1-minute survey that invites people to offer their ideas on the major challenges that we face. We also have a platform that invites people to offer their ideas in writing. We have an opportunity to receive artwork, and then we regularly organize webinars and invite people to participate in those. There are a lot of ways to contribute to the initiative. I am going to just pause for 1 second on the survey and just put out a plea for you and your organizations to do what you can to circulate this in your networks, and then the follow-up to this will include links to the survey, which is available in multiple languages. It's a simple 1-minute survey, perhaps actually a bit deceptively simple, because it's actually a bit of an interesting exercise to go through. You will be doing a version of this in just a minute, a more elaborate and a more collective version, but this is a really useful way for UNESCO to get perspectives from around the globe. And if there's time at the end and people are interested, I can talk about some of the differences and similarities that emerge across world regions. But what we're going to be doing right now, in just a second, is breaking into groups and taking up some of the key areas that the International Commission has identified as really significant for thinking about in relation to knowledge and learning and how they're structured and what they can allow us to do. So human and planetary sustainability, citizenship and participation, work and economic security. There'll be a group talking about knowledge, how knowledge is produced, how it's made available, how it's governed. And then there's also a broad futuring discussion that probably is going to touch all of those. And it's hard to imagine that in any one of those you won't also touch on others. So if the group that you're in doesn't perfectly align with your interests, don't worry. There'll be a chance for some of these interdisciplinary, kind of domain crossing conversations. So the last two things I would say before I turn you back over to Yvonne and Colin and Urvashi for the next step is to say, it's great that we have your expertise, and it's wonderful to pull you all together. You do bring a tremendous amount of expertise. That said, of course, no one has been to the future. no one is actually an expert on the future. We use the expertise we have to try and make us literate and capable vis-a-vis the future. So that's an invitation for you to step back a little bit, be comfortable exploring, recognizing that some of the questions that you're going to be asked and you're going to be talking about aren't questions that we know the answers to. We just need to think about them. And the second point was also raised by Urvashi, but I just want to emphasize that this is intended to be a visioning exercise. There'll be note takers who will summarize and synthesize, but we're also looking for divergent thinking, the ideas that come up as people interact together. So the hope is that these focus groups will be storms of brains. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to my colleagues for an explanation of the next steps. Thanks.
Yeah, Colin, do you want to?
Yeah, I think Noah's set it up really well. You've all pre-registered for one of the groups as you came on. So with the magic of technology, we hope and we pray we can all disappear to our groups and we'll take it from there. I think this session, I think it was on the agenda for 55 minutes, but I think it's actually a 40-minute session. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
Yes, 40 minutes.
Good. 40 minutes it is. Okay, take it away.
We'll have a quick round of introductions, but given we've almost already lost 10 minutes, if we could just say the name and the organization we are from, I think that would be very good. And I think my colleague Alisa is taking notes, and if not, Yvonne will just, Yvonne, I think Alisa needs to know she has to be here. Yeah? Oh, okay, let's start. So if you could just introduce your name and pass the baton to the next person. I see Ali Berry here is the first person next to me. So I'll let you start. A, Ali, and A, you're next to me. Just name an organization and country.
Hi.
Simple.
Hi, I'm Ali Berry with High Resolves, and I'm based in the US. Over to Yanni.
Hi, everybody. My name's Yanni. I work for Tackle Africa. We do sexual health education for young people across sub-Saharan Africa using sport, and I'm in London. And I pass over to Leslie.
Mute. My name is Leslie Udwin. I'm the founder and the executive chair of Think Equal, which is an organization that brings social and emotional learning to the very early years, 3 to 6 year olds only, and co-constructs pro-social brain development. Okay. Shine Dewovo.
Hello, I'm Shine Dewovo from Ghana. I work on the MG Cubed and T4T project in Ghana. And this is with Plan International Ghana. Thank you. I passed this on to, is it Jero? That's if I got it right.
Hi, I'm Juru from Catalyst, and I pass it to Zaheen.
Hi everyone, I'm Zaheen from Big Bad Boot Productions. We make educational entertainment shows for kids, and I'm based in the US. And I pass it on to, I'm gonna get this wrong, Maive, if I have it right.
Is that me?
Yep.
Sorry, that was a total butchering of your name.
Oh, you're fine, Maeve. Hi, I'm Maeve. I'm a lecturer and researcher from Ireland, and I pass it back to Juru.
Okay, Vasi.
Hi, I'm Vasi from Bukovina Institute from Romania. We are based on the northern part of Romania, close to the border with Ukraine. I don't know, I just joined the meeting and I don't know who didn't speak, but I will pass to, okay, Claude, Ryan, I don't know if it's correct.
Good try. Hi, I'm Cleona Ryan, and I work with Ubongo. It's an edutainment organization based in Tanzania, and we broadcast educational entertainment all across Africa and beyond. And I'm the head of education there, making sure that our content is educational as well as being entertaining. So I will pass to, let me see, Martina.
Hi, I'm Martina. I'm with Catalyst 2030, and I will pass it to Ali Berry.
I actually spoke initially, so back over to Jeru.
Neha?
Hi everyone, I'm Neha. I work with Quest Alliance. We're an NGO based in India.
You pass to?
Chandra?
Hello, I am Chandra from Indonesia. I am working for character education. Thank you.
Thanks. Have we covered everybody?
I think I'm left to go. I'm Divya. I'm from Mumbai in India, and I represent Basuri Foundation. We fund NGOs in the early education space.
Super, thanks. And I see Blessing has joined.
Hello. If I may. Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
All right, really quickly. I'm Ode Haru. I work for Take Action Global, and we're based in the US and in Belgium. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Blessing. I'm from Nigeria. I'm the founder of the Innovative Child Network, where we train children on skill-based learning.
Excellent. Anyone else who has been missed? Sorry, because it's difficult when, has everyone been covered? Anyone else? No. Okay, great. I think all of you know, and Yvonne, please add, this is the broad scope of education that we are looking at. And basically what our group has to think about is, what should the collective purpose of education be in 2050? So that would be the important thing. And we need to understand that education is lifelong learning, like Noah said. So it's not just one thing, but it is, we have 20 minutes to go. And we need to know what should be the collective purpose of education in your opinion. And who's taking notes, Yvonne, here?
Martina.
Okay, Martina is taking notes. So please go ahead, and if someone is talking and an idea comes to you, please also type it. So we capture the idea also on the chat, but also as you talk. I repeat the question, what in your opinion should be the purpose of education as we move towards 2050? And how? I'd say both. Who wants to go? Who wants to start? And anyone can jump in and type both.
I'm going to start. I think character development is a very important part of education because it shapes the kind of human beings, and then they can shape in turn the world.
Super. Please just jump in, okay?
Okay, I'll jump in. Sorry. So I was going to say, I would stress the importance of project-based learning, and in parallel to that, everybody be able to use digital tools to enhance their learning, including the project-based learning and the service learning. But we cannot afford to have a complete digital divide by 2050. Everybody needs to know how to use some of these digital tools, or they will fall really behind.
Okay, so I'll comment here.
I want to take it on from both those comments, but just very briefly to say to Ord, yes, everyone should know how to use digital resources, but everyone should have digital resources. And the point is that until there is equality of resource, until there is equality amongst us, and the male-made systems of business and patriarchy change, nothing will change in that respect, and we will still have people left behind. So education in 2050, as far as I'm concerned, has to recognize the key foundational stage in early childhood, without which we go nowhere. If we don't put the foundations down, as far as I believe, then we have to undo bad wiring later on and are always lagging behind. And the whole purpose of education should be rethought and redesigned. It's not about a place in the labor market. It's about being a responsible, contributing global citizen who actually is inclusive, empathetic. I mean, my organization, Think Equal, trains 3 to 6 year olds in 25 competencies and skills that aren't even thought of in the education system yet. Gender equality needs to be taught or we'll never reach it, etc. So that's my take on it.
Okay, I wanted to talk about the purpose of education inspiring global citizens in every child, because without proper education, young people will not understand their rights and responsibilities. And it's very, very important that as young people are growing up, they understand their place in the world and how each person contributes to sustainable development. So global citizenship is very, very important, just as Leslie Goodwin had spoken.
Ali, you have also said something similar. Do you want to build on that?
Yes, I think, and I just shared this, did some work for many years on building a framework and goal for work we were doing in high schools in the US. So it's a broader vision of student success, and you'll see that it is, I think, a combination of having, you know, every young person having and kind of being a master of fundamental literacies and foundational knowledge, while also having the skills to be just to be prepared for the future and work. And so, and that is something that's also been shifting and will continue to. So we emphasized collaboration and original thinking and learning for life. And then across all of it, I think a big emphasis on citizenship and also equity.
Anyone else? Vasi? I don't know.
I already mentioned about, I believe on learning by doing. So more practical educational pathway will be the future, I think, because I don't know, in Romania, we still have a lot of theoretical, which is not helpful at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Zahin, I know you do edutainment, anything over there?
Just something that I was actually going to speak, so thank you for calling on me. Just to kind of add on to what Leslie was saying, and Aude as well, in regard to like digital learning. And I think one of the most important things is to make education more accessible as well. So if not, you know, if everyone doesn't have access to digital learning, then identifying different areas of maybe through radio or through television, but identifying different ways in which we can help people access education. I think that's very important as well. Apart from the learning portion, it's the accessibility of education, which is important.
Okay. Especially in the last mile, I assume. Yeah. We have some people who haven't spoken, so I'd like them to speak. Okay. Sorry. Shine?
All right. Yeah, hello, I'm Shine. Okay, so just to add on, I work on the MG Cube project in Ghana. And one thing that the project seeks to do is to provide quality education to marginalized girls, especially in remote communities in Ghana. And then within COVID-19, we realized that there have been lots of challenges as far as girls accessing education. So several measures were adapted to make sure that these girls access education. However, regardless of the challenge, the measures that have been put in place, we realize that the challenges to girls' education still persist. So then I begin to think about this, that in looking forward towards 2020, what I seek to be a kind of a greater reform is to have an educational system where the challenges of girls' education are totally eradicated. And by this, I am envisaging and expecting that educational reforms, structures, and frameworks that are developed factor in particular challenges to girls' education and work towards eradicating them. So that is what I want to see with regard to this.
Anyone else? Leslie, you want to say something?
I have already spoken, so I feel bad kind of hogging it.
Yeah, but I could see you shaking your face.
I do. I desperately want to say something. I think that, you know, the most important thing education has to do, or the world will be stuck in development emergencies, engulfed in these horrific, you know, refugee crises, climate crises. Everything we're dealing with is because we are dealing with a mindset that needs changing, and nothing will change until we change the mindset. So from my point of view, that is why I place all of my focus and emphasis on the early years. We are a world which, you know, talks, sort of professes allegiance to neuroscience and measurements and evaluations, and we ignore what the scientists say, which is that it's up to the age of 6 that you can put in a foundation for a human being to grow up with positive outcomes. I have sat and interviewed rapists and murderers in prison, looked into their eyes, and I can tell you they didn't stand a chance of growing up to do anything other than what they did, because we've taught them how to think. All around the world, patriarchy, socio-cultural thinking has been that a woman is of lesser value. And I'm only talking about one aspect of things. I'm not even touching here on caste or race, or which is all very important. Until we change the mindset, we will change nothing. And we have to start at 3. And, you know, some countries like India has just become unbelievably enlightened about saying new education policy. We're not getting our kids in at 6, we're starting at 3. We actually have the last thing I'm going to say, and then I promise you I'll be quiet, but I'm bursting with it. We've just had the education minister of Belize. An entire country has agreed to make this program that we've worked on for 4 years with world experts compulsory for every single child in Belize between the age of 3 and 6. Just wait and see what's going to happen in that country in 10 years' time when these kids are 13, 14, and 15. You know, we got to start early is my plea.
Super. I agree to that, so I won't say anything. Some people who haven't spoken, and I may be missing, Ginani Kli, I can't pronounce it, Cleona?
Cleona, yes.
Huh?
It's Cleona.
Please go, sorry.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think I would also agree with what others have said, especially on the areas of character strengths and socio-emotional learning. And it's something that at Ubongo we're really prioritizing, because we know that the research shows a direct link between socio-emotional development and later school performance, even adult earnings and poverty that children experience as they reach adulthood. And I think it's an area that what we are seeing is that it's being incorporated into curricula, particularly across the African continent. As curriculums are being updated, we're seeing it being incorporated into curricula. But then in terms of the practicalities of actually incorporating it into lessons in the classroom, teachers are really struggling, and for various reasons, due to class sizes and also sometimes perceptions that, you know, a child isn't learning unless they're learning something by memory or something that can be used in a test. So something that we're really trying to do through edutainment is to connect those socio-emotional learning objectives with other objectives to show how they can be embedded. So for example, you can pick a STEM learning objective, like maybe we have an episode where the characters are putting together a project for a science fair, but while they're learning and researching for their science project, they're also displaying characteristics such as patience, collaboration. And so I think there needs to be a real push for that integrated approach to show that it's not either or, that socio-emotional learning and character strengths are integral to learning, and they not only help children to learn, but they also improve the learning that children are engaging with. So it's kind of, they benefit on both ways. They learn the skills, but then it also then has an impact in improving their learning. So I really think we need to see more of that integration taken from policy into practice.
Thanks. We have 4 minutes left, and we need one person to report back to the group. So I need a volunteer. So far, things I have captured is the things I have captured is basically citizens starting young, global citizenship as a thing, not just jobs, being caring human beings, character development linked to global citizenship, access to the last mile. These are the main things that are there that I have captured. Who wants to present?
You know very well. I think you should present.
No, I'm not presenting. Sorry. Who's presenting? Otherwise, I will nominate someone. A volunteer, please.
I think Leslie should present.
Thank you, Blessing. Thank you very much, Blessing. Have I missed anything else for Blessing to present, or is there? I think we have 3 minutes. So
I was actually nominating Leslie.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were nominating yourself, Blessing. So
I was nominating Leslie.
Are you a blessing or a curse? I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay. Okay. Any other points? Anyone else?
Juru, would you just dash through? You so succinctly mentioned those categories. I just want to make sure I've written them down so I'm faithful and in the moment.
But I may be forgetting, so I want everyone to chime in. One was character development. Linked to character development was global citizenship. Yeah, Ali has put it all down very well. Starting young.
Brilliant,
yes.
Ali. Thank you.
Last mile. We need to rethink education, equality of resources, making sure that it's still project-based and not theoretical. That was Wasi's point, which was there. So learning by doing. And breaking patriarchal barriers to have equal access for all. These are the ones I have caught. Anything else that is missing, which y'all think is really a must when we are 50 plus, and anyone who hasn't spoken?
Jiru, I just wanted to add, I think I typed it as well. I think just this skill of learning to learn, so that we put learners on a path development and they take charge of their own learning pathways as well, to be able to also respond to the future, which is going to be evolving and changing. And I think the other point is just learners becoming more critical thinkers, so that they have the ability to challenge the norms, which Len was also talking about very passionately, and feel confident enough and have that self-belief to be able to do that more confidently.
So the breadth of the competencies and the skills, in other words, is what you're talking about, yeah?
And critical thinking.
Yes, which is, of course, one of them. And the last mile, just to check, last mile is about access, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think Mike hasn't spoken. If I'm going through the list, Merv, have you spoken?
Hi, Jeru. Mike here.
Hi.
And I've just joined you, and have you guys been on this? Maybe I'm an hour late, am I?
Yeah, you're
I
on
just came
early,
on.
sorry.
All
Basically,
right.
what's the purpose of education?
Well,
By 50.
yeah, I guess, and so this is making points to UNESCO and as a collective
Yes.
group. Yeah.
Yes.
I guess my biggest thing is that we have to make room for informal learning. Because the world is really stuck on formal accreditation, which is really slow and expensive. And yet we can all see it. There are tens of thousands of free courses being provided online, every year now, and it will get up to, we will have a million high quality courses on every subject under the sun at every level in every language. And how does this fit into our landscape? Because I just see it. I have 4 kids. I have 3 of them in college. None of them want to stay there because the learning is so slow and it's expensive. And it's just, look, learning is escaping out of the bag, whether we like it or not. People are learning in their own ways. Plus, artificial intelligence and actually psychometrics is really changing the game. It's how people are going to be assessed anymore. It is going to move to what people know, not what they used to know, or what they've proven they knew once upon a time, because psychometrics can find out all of the testing online can test all of the knowledge that you have, and psychometrics can look at your aptitudes and potential capabilities. So we have to get away from traditional accreditation. It is the old solution. It's not going to last very long, and yet the entire education system is completely stuck in gear there. So UNESCO can't be listening to the universities and colleges of the world, because I think that they will be largely bypassed. They're not ending next year or anytime soon, but most of the stuff that you see, all the kids all around the world learning at college today, most of them at undergraduate level can learn an awful lot online.